take quorum and vote on the previous bill. So we're going to go ahead and start with, I think it's going to be a quicker bill, with Senator Gregory from the 21st. Come on up. Feel free to introduce yourself, explain your bill whenever you're ready.
Senator Gregory from the 21st, or the larger Gregory, whatever we want to refer to it as. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Curtis Gregory, Senate District 21. I don't know if proud's the right word of saying to be here today, but I think it probably does sum it up, because I think what we're going to do here with this legislation is potentially save lives. I'm going to be really brief, but I know it's not called Davies Law yet, but I've been told that's something that we'd like to maybe consider changing, because we're here today for this legislation because of a student from the University of Missouri, which is my alma mater. His name was Davey. And I would tell the story, but I think there's going to be a witness that can do a lot better job of it. But what we're going to do here today is modify Missouri's hazing law to add in soliciting another person to participating in a willful act, otherwise known as hazing. Then I'm actually, to add a little bit of levity to the situation, I'm happy to hear a former member of fraternities. We're going to prevent that also, because some things might get crazy. But playing football at the University of Missouri, pop culture would have you believe that there's a lot of those stunts that go on from the movies you watch, whether you get taped to a goalpost or icy hot in a helmet. I know you played football a little bit at CMU there in Fayette, but Coach Pinkel had a very strict, we will not haze the freshmen policy. I would say the offensive line was probably the funnest room to be in, because we made them get up and tell jokes. And then the other big thing we did for the Rooks is they had swipes for the dining halls on campus. And those were like gold to 320-pound offensive linemen to go into Dobbs or Rollins and eat to our heart's content. You go to the waffle maker after you get done eating all your food and see what kind of dessert creation you can make. So those are some of the fun things that we had. But I think the most important part of this, and the story that could have saved this young man's life, is would provide immunity to anyone that's on hand when there would potentially be some hazing going on, to call law enforcement, to call medical assistance and say, hey, something terrible went wrong. We know we need help. The individuals that were part of the story knew we needed help, but it wasn't timely, and that's why the situation ended up the way that it's ended up. So with that, I will hope that you all take good consideration of this, and we can move on and hopefully get Davies Law passed.
Thank you. Any questions for the Senator? Senator Coleman.
Just a brief apology, Senator, for coming in mid-testimony.
Oh, you're just fine. Don't worry about it.
And I see that the smaller Gregory just walked in as well. Any questions for the larger Gregory?
The lesser man.
Seeing none. First witness in support, please come up. Make sure you have a witness form and proceed when ready. And just by a show of hands, who's here to testify in support of this bill? And who's here to testify against? Okay. Proceed when ready.
Yep.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is David Bianchi. I'm from Florida. It's my first time in Missouri. I think you have the most beautiful state capital that I ever saw in my life, so it's a treat to be here. I'm here in support of this bill, which I cannot tell you how important this is. I'm a lawyer in Florida. I represented Danny Santulli and his family in the incident out of Mizzou back in October of 2021, which received so much attention. I've been representing victims in hazing cases throughout the United States for about 25 years, and I've seen terrible things. Most people don't understand that hazing in its very worst form is alive and well today, all over the place. And it doesn't matter what school you go to. I've had it in Ivy League schools, in little community colleges, and everything in between. Every state in America has an anti-hazing law. Every major fraternity and sorority in the country has an anti-hazing policy. Every major university has an anti-hazing policy. And yet hazing is happening like never before with horrible outcomes. I have a list here this list, which I brought multiple copies if you care to see it, these are all the people who have died as college freshmen as pledges to fraternities since the year 2000. There are 86 on this list, and my list isn't complete. So if I were to update it, it would go north of 90. All freshman pledges who are dead never made it home for Thanksgiving because of hazing, despite all the laws and the rules and the regulations saying you cannot do it. But this doesn't even tell the whole story, because the whole story of hazing includes not just the deaths, but also the injuries. And I hate to say that your wonderful state has the distinction of being the place where the worst fraternity hazing injury has ever occurred in the United States. And that's the Danny Santulli case. Danny, I know you've heard of it, you've probably read about it, but he was a pledge, and he went to a Big Brother night at the frat house, and this was a tradition that they would put on in the month of October every year, despite the fact that the university said you can't do this. Their fraternity, national fraternity, says you cannot do this, and the law in the state of Missouri says you cannot do it. They could care less. They do it anyway. And it's not just that one frat at that one school. It's all over the place throughout the country, and it's killing young people and seriously injuring others. So what was this tradition that Danny was subjected to? The tradition was that this is a night where you're going to meet your big brother, and we're going to blindfold you, and we're going to bring you down into the basement, and you're going to take off your blindfold, and standing directly in front of you is going to be your big brother who you're going to meet for the very first time. And at that moment, you will be given the family bottle of alcohol. And each pledge was given a different kind of alcohol because each branch of the family has a different type of alcohol that they pass on to the next generation. So Danny was handed a bottle of vodka, and the expectation was that he is to drink it in the next few hours, the entire bottle. So to make sure that he wouldn't lose it, they taped it to his hand. And then they paraded all the pledges from the basement upstairs, where they would hang around with him for the next 2 hours, and they would drink. And this particular fraternity could not have been more outrageous because they did all of this with 22 video cameras rolling throughout the frat house. So everything was captured on video. So there can be no dispute about what happened. He proceeded to drink the alcohol. He couldn't get through the whole bottle, and you can see in the video at one point, a brother comes over to him, holds up the bottle to see how much is still left, and you can see on the video, even though there's no audio, that he says that's not enough, gives it back to Danny, and he continues to drink. Eventually, you know exactly what happened. With all that alcohol, he collapses. Literally, on the video, you can see him fall over, and he collapses in the room. They pick him up, they bring him into another room, and they dump him on a couch. And he lays on the couch all by himself, but there are 2 other couches, and there are 2 other drunk guys on the other couch, and they're all passed out. And people parade through the room for the next 45 minutes or so, and no one's helping him, and he's completely passed out. And then he slides off of the couch and collapses on the floor. That's on the video. Eventually, a big guy comes along, scoops him up, puts him back on the couch. Another half hour goes by. Now he's dying. He is in the process of dying. A big guy comes along, scoops him up, and puts him back on the couch. And then somebody realizes, ooh, he doesn't look good. I don't think he's breathing. And then it all hits the fan. They scramble around, but nobody calls 911. It was probably not too late to reverse the course of history at that moment in time if somebody had called 911 at that moment. But I can tell you, from working on these cases for a very long time all around the country, they're all afraid to call 911 because they think they're going to get prosecuted under the state hazing statute if their name is identified with what is going on, even if they're trying to be a good Samaritan by calling 911. They're afraid to call. So in Danny's case, they picked him up, they carried him upside down. They held him by his ankles, it's on the video, and they're walking to the exit door. His head is brushing along the floor, and when they get to the exit door, they drop him on his head, and he collapses. They pick him back up. They take him outside. They put him into a fraternity member's car. They drive him to the hospital. They're not sure how to get there. Now they call 911 for the first time. The operator tells them how to get to the hospital. By the time they pull into the parking lot of the hospital, Danny Santulli is dead. He's not breathing, and his heart's not working. The ER staff runs out. They do CPR in the car. They get the heart restarted, and they bring him back inside. And they admit him, and that is the beginning of the Danny Santulli Odyssey. As a result of no one calling 911 that night, Danny Santulli now lives with his mother and father at their home in Minnesota, where they take care of him 24 hours a day. He cannot speak, he cannot see, he cannot walk, he cannot care for himself, and he will be this way for the rest of his life. Now, you can pass all the laws that you want to say you cannot haze. And they're good laws, and you have to have them, and you do have them, and so do all the other states. But you have to incentivize people to call for help. That's what this bill does. I'm from Florida. I represented the family of Andrew Coffey in Florida, who went to Florida State. The fact scenario was identical to Santulli. Everything about what happened that night, the tradition that they were perpetuating, the family bottle of alcohol, drink the whole, identical. They threw Andrew Coffey on the couch. They came back the next morning because he was going to sleep it off, they thought. And they came back and he was dead. So I represented the family. And when I was done with that case, I told them that I would try to do something more for them than just recover money. I would try to make Florida's hazing law better than it is. So we wrote the law in Florida that is before you as a bill from Missouri. Your Missouri bill is identical to what we did in Florida, verbatim. In Florida, I went and testified before the House and the legislature, and then the Senate, and it passed unanimously in the House, it passed unanimously in the Senate, and Governor DeSantis signed it into law, and it's known as Andrew's Law after Andrew Coffey. Now, when I testified in that case, one of the representatives sat right where you're sitting, very good guy, a fraternity member in college, and he said, let me ask you a question. You mean you're proposing in order to incentivize people to call 911, to give immunity to the first person who calls 911, and also to whoever is rendering aid to the victim while help is on the way. That is your proposal. I said, yeah, that's my proposal. So he said, so you mean to tell me that we could be giving immunity to the person who did the hazing? Under this law, you could potentially be giving immunity to the guy who bought the bottle of alcohol for him and gave him the bottle of alcohol and told him to drink it, and you're proposing to give that guy immunity? And I said, yeah, that's exactly what we're proposing to do. Because I said, ask any parent who lost their son to hazing, and they will all tell you the same thing. I would much rather have my son back than prosecute the guy who did it. And everybody bought into that, and that's why it passed unanimously. So I'm here to say the same thing to all of you. If this law had been on the books here in Missouri when the Danny Santulli incident happened, and if you educate the Greek community that this law exists, and it will make a difference. You will undoubtedly save lives. This costs nothing. There's no budgetary impact here. And you're not letting these bad actors off scot-free because the other criminal laws in the state still apply. So you can still prosecute them for assault or battery or whatever else. The only thing they would get immunity for is under the hazing statute. That's it. But it'll incentivize them to call, and it'll incentivize somebody to perhaps do CPR while the victim's laying there on the floor and you just made a 911 call. Because if you're the person rendering aid to the victim per this bill, you also get immunity. And there's not a parent alive whose son might go through this nightmare who wouldn't say to you, please pass the bill. So I could go on, and I won't. I think you get the message. And I don't want to waste your time. I came up from Florida yesterday. I'm going home this afternoon. But I hope you would support this piece of legislation.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Thank you for your time. Next witness come up. Make sure you still have your witness form. Drop it off at the desk and proceed when ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bob Seltzer. I live in Richmond Heights, Missouri. I'm originally from Springfield. Let me first thank you all for your service. It's greatly appreciated. I serve as the volunteer president of the Mizzou Greek Alliance. We are a collection of alumni, mostly fathers and grandfathers of people who are in Greek houses at Mizzou. We have 18 houses. We have about 2,000 members, about 20,000 alumni. We were formed 3 years ago after the Danny Santulli incident as a best practices organization. So we collaborate, we trade information. One of our primary purposes is to provide training and education to young people. So hazing has been a major focus of what we do. We have a video on YouTube that's been viewed 1,600 times, I believe. If this bill passes, we will be at the forefront of getting the word out and educating people about its effect. I have been a volunteer for a fraternity for about 38 years. I serve as a national trustee of the Beta Theta Pi fraternity. When I was a young lawyer, I helped ASUM in drafting the hazing bill that is part of the penal code at this point in time. The examples that Mr. Bianchi gave are exactly consistent with what I have seen. My fraternity had a death at Penn State University in 2017. Young man consumed a tremendous amount of alcohol. Nobody called for help for several hours. Time is critical in this situation. I'm not a doctor, but we all know enough to know that the brain has got to have oxygen, and if it goes without oxygen long enough, then you suffer brain death, which can be brain damage or ultimately death. And in that instance, one of the members proposed that 911 should be called, and someone actually physically stopped him because they were afraid that they would be implicated in that. This bill is just common sense. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to have a degree or anything to know that this sort of thing will, in fact, incentivize people to call. We educate our members to do the right thing, but there are some people out there who are only incentivized by self-interest. And at the very least, this will incentivize them to pick up the phone. Of the dozens and dozens of kids who have died as a result of hazing, 85% of it, according to the North American Interfraternity Conference, involves alcohol. And time is of the essence. If you can get somebody to make a phone call, then you can avert someone being harmed or damaged by this. So I urge you as a volunteer. I have a son who is in a Greek house at the university. He's exactly the same age as Danny Santulli. It's been a very wonderful experience for him. He's made friends. The hazing has been very minor, nothing that would jeopardize you. But if you have a big enough population, there are 6,000 Greek chapters in America, and there are some that do this, and a bill like this will help to stop the worst results of this phenomenon from happening. And I'd be very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Next witness in support, please come forward. Any more witnesses in support? Seeing none. Any witnesses to testify against the bill? Any for informational purposes? Seeing none. Any closing remarks?
No, thank you for your consideration. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bigger Gregory. Next, we will move to Senator Williams. on Senate Bill 19. Thank you, Senator. You can proceed when ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Senator Brian Williams, District 14, St. Louis County. I want to take a minute to thank Chairman Shore as well as members of the committee for the opportunity to have this important conversation today. The purpose of this bill is solely to provide a second chance for people who might have made a mistake at some point in their life. I'm willing to bet there are people in this room that have made mistakes before, and these mistakes shouldn't ruin their lives forever. This bill is an effort to make sure that people have a second chance at life and give them an opportunity to be productive members of our communities. And I also want to be clear about something. We're talking about a population of people that have paid their debts to society. In 2021, I sponsored and we passed Senate Bills 53 and 60 that reduced the time that someone has to wait to file for an expungement after they've completed their mandatory supervised release. During this time, they have had trouble finding stable employment and housing, and we know this is a recipe for recidivism, and that is exactly what we're trying to avoid with this bill. My clean slate bill, Senate Bill 19, is a workforce development bill that would help not only people get on a fresh start, but also grow our economy. And in these challenging economic times, we need to get government out the way and help people get back to working. We also need workers to help our local businesses thrive here in Missouri. And then we also have to recognize that this is legislation that has been supported by at least 8 chambers of commerce throughout the state, as well as a cohort of businesses across Missouri. A criminal record can keep people from finding work as well as reaching their full potential. And I've had one study that showed that 1 year after having their records expunged, people are more likely to be employed and their earnings are 22% higher. Yet, less than 1% Missourians eligible for record expungement actually receive it. So this is a definition, in my opinion, of failed government system. So this is because Missouri requires navigating a tangled bureaucracy, and there's a process that we've seen that wastes time as well as money. Missourians who have done their time and remain crime-free deserve a chance to earn a living wage as well as provide for their families. And that's the primary reason I'm sponsoring this legislation, because I'm confident this is something that a lot of Missourians would be in support of. There was also a poll conducted in 2022 by the Justice Action Network that found that nearly 3/4 of voters supported allowing Missouri residents with lower-level criminal records who have been reoffended over a period of time have their records sealed. Clean slate would also seal records of low-level offenses after a person remains crime-free for several years, and it does not change how long someone must go without committing a crime. The bill also removes barriers to employment, housing, and education, giving people who have turned their lives around a fresh start. We've seen it done in various states, legislatures in red and blue states alike. They have all enacted common sense laws with great results for public safety as well as economic development. If Utah and Oklahoma can do it, I'm confident we can do it here in Missouri. Lastly, clean slate is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. Clean slate can be done safely and would actually make our community safer simply by providing jobs. To qualify people, they must serve their full sentence, remain crime-free for years. We know the rigorous studies that people who remain crime-free for years are no more likely to commit a crime than people without a criminal record. The opportunities that Clean Slate provides makes it easier to get a job, find stable housing, go back to school, and it make it less likely that a person will commit another crime. So I want to thank you all again for the opportunity to have this bill heard before your committee. I firmly believe that this is good policy for our state. I think it can put so many people on a trajectory to be able to support themselves and their families. And most importantly, I believe it's something that would provide a remedy to our workforce shortage. Also, just to put on the record, we do have a substitute that are being drafted, so we will be making a couple changes at some point, but I'd love to open up any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Senator. This is fairly identical to Senate Bills 763 and 1161 from last year, correct?
That's correct.
And what are the changes that you think are going to be included in the substitute?
Well, the policy and the intention behind the bill, everyone's in support of. Some questions have been raised around how we implement it. So we'll be working with various stakeholders and departments to make sure that everybody's rowing in the same direction. But again, I think the benefit and the public policy and the folks that can benefit from it long-term outweigh the tanglement of bureaucracy and questions about how we implement it.
There are a couple other bills floating around that essentially are the same. I believe Senator Trent, maybe Senator Washington.
Correct.
Okay. Are they identical to this language, or do you know if they're a little bit different?
I'm not 100% sure if it's identical, but I'm pretty positive it's very similar.
Perfect. Any questions for Senator Williams? Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. I had a couple questions about, and I understand that there are some things in the works, but one of the things that the MODOJ committee is going to be looking at is abandoned funds, and you're creating a new fund that has a provision that prevents sweeping at any point. And I was wondering if we could work together to make sure that if at some point, God forbid, this effort is abandoned, that there's an ability to not have abandoned funds sitting out there and just kind of hanging out there, because this is one of the problems that the state's facing is we create all these special funds. Unfortunately, because of term limits and the bureaucratic state, sometimes things aren't implemented the way we want. I want to make sure that that doesn't just sit there unutilized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. And then wanted to talk with you a little bit about some of the court systems technology. So I'm assuming that that's one of the hang-ups is trying to create some of the automation of that, and I'd love to be a part of that conversation because our systems, as you know, are somewhat based on COBOL. I learned how to do nested for loops on COBOL. That's a very, very old system. Yeah. And unfortunately, we really struggle from a technology standpoint. So demanding a technology usage that we can't implement, I want to make sure that we're working through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And my personal and professional opinion is that I don't think that we should leave people who have been model citizens for a long time on the hook because we can't keep up with the pace of technology.
I agree entirely. And then the second question is there's a classification of people that in some of the previous bills that you were talking about have been left behind. They aren't able to apply for some of the expungement, and that's when they're Missouri residents whose originating crimes are in out-of-state provisions, and those out-state jurisdictions have lost some of their records, and so they can't apply for expungement of being on some of the long-lasting effects of those crimes that are in many cases decades old. So wanting to make sure we take care of including those people too, so that if the sending state has lost the originating paperwork, we can utilize the paperwork that put those people into our judicial system at the outset to help them apply for expungement as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that'll be something that'll prevent for many, many years down the road people having to run into those hiccups as well.
Thank you, Senator.
Thanks.
Further questions? Senator Gregory.
Senator, thanks so much. I wasn't here last year, so I just got a couple clarifying questions. So first off, it looks like this acts to just become closed automatically so they don't have to hire an attorney to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
like
it just makes the process, streamline it. As you know, as an attorney, when you get an expungement, it's a very daunting process. You got to, you're filing a civil lawsuit. You have to pay an attorney a lot of money. And most of the time, it's already challenging just trying to identify where the offense happened and getting that record as well to even remember what you did. So it'll just streamline it, reduce a lot of red tape, and just make it easy to navigate bureaucracy.
For sure, that's great. So I'm trying to just quickly understand the clean slate eligible offenses. So if I'm reading it correctly, it's every single offense in the state of Missouri, whether it's got different levels, but I don't see, like, for instance, dangerous felonies.
Nonviolent offenses.
Okay, I didn't see the nonviolent. Where is that? Will you show me where that is?
I don't have the bill in front of me, but
Okay.
it'll cover nonviolent offenses, low-level offenses. So if you've been charged with or convicted or arrested for a violent crime, you wouldn't be eligible for an expungement.
Gotcha.
So it would be more, again, someone that may have been caught with marijuana at 18, and now they're 38. And for the past 20 years, they've been trying to get a job, and they've been denied an opportunity, even if they're educated, because they have this on the record.
We all agree with that one. Okay. I'm going to search for that and
Yeah,
study this a
we'll
little
make
bit
sure we
more.
get that to you.
It sounds like the principles are there, though. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Further questions? All right. Individuals that are going to testify by show of hands for this bill and against this bill. Okay. We're going to try, because we've got a strict time limit. Let's go to 3 minutes for each testimony. And the first, we're going to do all of the pros and cons. You were here, so come on up. Make sure you have a witness form and proceed when ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Mallory Rush, and I am the Executive Director at Empower Missouri, the state's leading anti-poverty advocacy organization. We are thrilled to be here today to offer testimony in support of SB19, which we do refer to as clean slate legislation. Our nation's criminal justice system was conceived and implemented long before the internet became an integral component of our society. The justice system was designed to both punish and rehabilitate people who break the law, serving as a deterrent for illegal activities and offering corrective supports to people, to those who've broken the law out of desperation due to mental illness or addiction, or as youthful indiscretions. Individuals are tried by a jury of their peers, and if they are found guilty, they are sentenced to a punishment that is commensurate with the level of harm that is caused to the community. The system was not designed to punish people for the rest of their lives. However, with the advent of the internet and online repositories for criminal records, this is the reality that we currently live in. Many individuals with past criminal records report years or even decades of struggling to secure employment and housing due to the high prevalence of background checks conducted by employers and landlords. Now it's about 9 in 10 employers and 4 in 5 landlords that utilize these services. And therefore, it makes it really hard. Applicants with a criminal record are much less likely to get a callback or a job interview than an individual applicant without a record, an identical applicant without a record. And so what that has resulted in is folks being unable to get employed, and then as a result, previously incarcerated people are 10 times more likely than the general population to end up homeless. The American Conservative Union's Nolan Center for Justice asserts that the harm that is done by a sentence should never be greater than the harm that is caused by a crime. But records for offenses like drug possession, writing a bad check, or petty theft can amount to what feels like a life sentence of being denied apartments, jobs, access to loans, and other collateral consequences for past mistakes. In 2012, Missouri began to recognize those unintended consequences and came up with the state's current petition-based expungement program, But as Senator Williams already discussed, only about 1% of those who are eligible for those expungements have been able to get them because the process is so cumbersome, so complicated, and so costly. And so under a clean slate program, an algorithm that is coded to eligibility criteria just runs a monthly search on the state's criminal history database and routes a list of eligible records to courts for processing. This is a proven tech-based solution that has been implemented in many other states. I believe that Pennsylvania just hit a landmark of clearing their 3 millionth record. Automating the process is going to make it accessible to all Missourians, regardless of whether or not they have the knowledge, time, and resources to navigate a complicated and costly system. However, expungement would remain unavailable to those who've committed violent or sexual offenses. And to respond to Senator Gregory's earlier question, the eligibility is exactly the same as the current petition-based expungement system. It just takes that system to an automated role. So there's no additional crimes that are being added to the eligibility provision in this bill. It simply is automating the offenses that are already eligible. So like Senator Williams said, no violent offenses, no sexual offenses. We are talking about non-violent offenses and folks that are just trying to be able to get a job, get an apartment, and provide for their families. And at the end of the day, we believe that this is really going to help to make all of our communities safer. We want people to not have to be struggling and for our law enforcement officers to be able to truly focus on folks who are out there committing violent crimes in our communities, and not have our judicial system spending time on these folks who've committed nonviolent crimes. And I'm sure that my time is up, so I will just say thank you all so much for their willingness to hear this legislation. I know that a number of our conservative partners, national partners, the American Conservative Union, Faith and Freedom, the Christian Coalition, are all coming in town next week, and we'll be looking to schedule meetings with all of you to show their support. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Thank you. Leave your witness form, and next, in support of the bill, come forward.
Also, really quick, as Mallory said, so it will be anyone that qualifies must have paid their assigned restitution owed to anyone as well. So they can't owe any restitution that was impacted by their offense, and then it still goes with what the current law is with expungement. So I believe it's 1 year for a misdemeanor non-violent offense, and then 3 years removed for a felony non-violent offense.
Next witness in support, introduce yourself, make sure you have a witness form, and proceed when ready.
Members of the committee, my name is Patrick Benson. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. I'm a case manager with Criminal Justice Ministries. We have a program called the Release to Rent Veterans Program. What we do is we take veterans that are involved with the criminal justice system, usually due to untreated PTSD and active substance use disorder, and we help them do reentry into society after most of the time incarceration at DOC. Our number one indicator on whether or not our clients are able to successfully reenter are two things: whether or not we can get them a well-paying job and where we can get them housed at. We've got some relationships with some property owners, usually in a kind of not the greatest of areas. We'd like to get some people in better areas, but if we can get them housed and paid a well-paying job, it's the number one indicator of whether or not these people are successfully transitioned. It's also the number one barrier we have to people transitioning and whether or not their recidivism takes place. But we can't get people secure in their housing and earning a good wage. It's hard to give them hope to transition. So professionally, I'm strongly in support of Senate Bill 19. Personally, I'm a graduate of Criminal Justice Ministries Release to Rent Veterans Program. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I'm also a firefighter paramedic. In 2004, due to untreated PTSD, I devolved into active substance use disorder, lost my job as a firefighter. Until 2017, I was in a car accident, single car accident. I hit a tree doing about 90 miles per hour. Ultimately, I had my right leg amputated. Even that wasn't enough to get me into recovery. I entered into recovery in 2019, and I've been in recovery ever since. So I am a felon. I'm a graduate of this program. But I've worked really, really hard since 2019 to close the door on that chapter of my life. Today, I'm a senior at University of Missouri St. Louis. I'm graduate with my bachelor's in social work. My work as a case manager with criminal justice ministry, like I said. I'm also working with Empower Missouri as an internship. The biggest thing I can say is, in 1999, when I was working as a firefighter paramedic, we went into a building and pulled the lady out of an active house fire and got her back. Did CPR in the yard and got her back. And we were awarded a Heroism Award in 1999. Now, I don't walk down the street today and people don't identify me by the one greatest thing I've done in my life. When I do walk down the street today, every time I fill out a job application, I get identified by the one darkest chapter of my life. I've worked hard to close the door on that chapter of my life. I'm asking the panel, the committee, and the Senate to please help me finally, and my clients, completely close the door on that chapter of my life and open the door on something new. Thank you very much.
You had 1 second left. It was perfect timing. Any questions for the witness? Senator May.
Thank you for being here. My question is, in your experience, how difficult is it for individuals who have been released to pay their restitution?
It's very hard. I mean, a lot of the guys we have some relationships with employers, but almost all of them are minimum wage. They're also paying probation parole fees, and we have a step up rent program where they have to pay their rent, they have to pay their bills, they take over their own bills within a year. So it's very, very hard to pay off the restitution. But they can do it. They just have to budget. That's one of my main challenges I have with all my clients is teach them how to budget effectively.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you for your time. And next witness in support, please come forward. You'll have 3 minutes. Make sure you have a witness form and proceed when ready.
My name is Patty Berger. I live in the city of St. Louis. I have 2 grown children and 5 grandchildren. I work for the city also. I work in the public administrator's office. A lot of you probably know we serve as guardian for a lot of people with developmental or mental disabilities. I'm also the president of the St. Louis chapter of All of Us or None. I'm a formerly incarcerated woman. I went to prison 11 times here in Missouri. The last time I was incarcerated was in 2001. That time was different for me because I had support of some organizations in the community who were able to help me with housing. As Patrick said, that's a big barrier. The other times I got out, I didn't. I went right back to the same area I lived in before and didn't have any money, any job skills, or any way to get anything for myself or my 2 children. When I was released in 2001, I had been to treatment for 120 days in the St. Louis County Jail. But prior to that, in 1999, I did long-term treatment inside Vandalia, the women's prison. So the 11th time I went to prison, I was afforded treatment for an addiction. I relapsed. I didn't do what I was told to do, go to meetings, get a sponsor, that type of stuff, work the steps. But when I got the chance to go back and do 120 days in the jail, my son ended up in the jail with me for completely different reasons. It's one of the biggest statistics. The incarcerated people's children are 6 to 9 times more likely to end up incarcerated. It broke my heart. I mean, all the things I had done through the years, stealing to support my addiction, running in and out of my children's lives, that one just smacked me in the face, seeing my son in the same jail as me. I say all that to say, since 2001, I have been clean. I've got my degree in social work. I've kept a steady job, and I've only had 1 speeding ticket, and that was coming back from Jefferson City, the capital, and trying to get to work. Today, although I have a full-time job with the city, it doesn't pay me very much, and I have 2 other jobs part-time that I do also. My son is a St. Louis City firefighter. His record was, one, he had probation, and he was able to not have a record afterwards. Even though I'm here to testify about Senate Bill 19 and wanting it to pass and be considered, the automated expungement is so easy for everyone. I know it might have a little cost with it, but the other states have found a way to do it. Our lives are impacted till we die. It never goes away. Although my employer knows that I'm formerly incarcerated, the people I work with do not. So I'm always wondering, what if they type my name into Google? Because I'm still in CaseNet. It gives my home address, where I live now. I don't know why they do that, but they do. And it never goes away. And I wanted to come today and talk to you all because it affects people and their lives and their families and their kids. And I made a lot of bad choices, and I've tried to make up for it by giving back to my community for the past 24 years. And I thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you for your time today. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Going to move forward with the next witness in support.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Shore, Vice Chair Gregory, honorable members of the Judiciary, Civil, and Criminal Jurisprudence Committee. My name is Fran Marion. I'm a shift manager at Wendy's in Kansas City, Missouri, and I've been a fast food worker for over 20 years. I'm also a single mother of 2 young adults and leader with the Missouri Workers Center. I'm here today to testify in favor of SB19, the Clean Slate Initiative. I got arrested back in 2009. I was working at McDonald's making $8.50 an hour on the poverty wages McDonald's was paying me. We struggled to keep the lights, keep up with the bills, and fell behind our electric bill and got our lights cut off. For a little while, we were able to run an extension cord from our neighbor's house so we could charge our phones, cook, and the kids could take a bath with warm water. But eventually, we wore out our welcome and couldn't do that anymore. Worried about my kids, I resorted to cashing a bad check, to attempting to cash a bad check with $700. It would have been just enough to pay our light bill and get our electricity turned back on. But as you probably guessed, that's not how it went down. The day I tried to cash the check, I got arrested right then and there. I spent 6 years in the state penitentiary for trying to keep the lights on for my family. That's 6 years of missed birthdays, holidays with my kids, and watched them grow into young adults that I can never get back. Can you imagine missing that much time with your kids when they need you the most? When I got out, I went to the halfway house and they gave me a list of places that would hire people with a record, fast food restaurants and low-wage warehouse jobs, the same jobs that trapped me in poverty in the first place. I ended up at Popeyes where I worked for 7 years, and I've been trapped in low-wage jobs ever since. I have always worked, but I have been stuck in low-paying jobs, sometimes more than one at the same time, where me and my coworkers are creating billions of dollars in wealth for corporations that don't even pay me enough to feed my kids. We have been homeless. We have had our lights and water cut off. It doesn't have to be this way. After 7 years at Popeyes, I knew that store like the back of my hand. But I was denied a promotion to become a shift leader because I committed a crime of poverty almost 2 decades ago. And I can't tell you how many times I've been denied housing for the same reason. My kids and I have been forced to live in unsafe housing because of my record. No matter how hard I work, I don't feel any less trapped. Society continues to punish me with a life sentence where my record is on me like a scarlet letter. No matter who we are, black, white, or brown, we make mistakes. We all deserve to move on in life when we make amends. Isn't that what being human is all about? Right now, 518,000 Missourians like me are already eligible for expungement, but less than 1% of us actually get our records expunged because the process is too difficult, time-consuming, and expensive. I'm here today to ask you to cut the red tape, Make expungement automatic so that we can finally have the clean slate we deserve. Please vote yes on SB19. I so thank you.
I don't know why it sounds like that, but I thank you for your time. It's the scariest alarm I've ever heard. But I want to thank you for coming again today and our time last year discussing these bills. Any questions for the witness?
Yeah.
Senator May.
How you doing? Thank you for coming. My office is 225. Do you mind stopping by there before you leave this building? Thank you.
Any further questions? Again, I want to thank you for your time. Before we go to the next witness, we're going to pause for a second and take roll. So, Mr. Secretary, go ahead and call the roll.
Senators Schroer.
Here.
Gregory 15. Here. Brown 26.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
May. Here. Roberts. Here. Schnelting.
All right, we have a quorum, and I make a motion that we go into executive session. Do I have a second? Second. Got a second, and we're going to bring up, going to move that Senate Bill number 36 be brought before the committee. Do I have a second? Second. All right, bill is now brought before the committee. I make a motion that we do pass Senate Bill number 36 by Senator Roberts. I have it right here. Any discussion?
Can you wait a second? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time finding my bill.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to inquire of Senator Roberts. I know we've discussed this bill and the intent behind it. I think most everyone agrees with. I think there's some technicalities that the prosecutors and others have indicated we're going to work on. Work on whether it's an amendment or a substitute by the time it hits the floor. Is that correct?
That's correct. And yeah, then this is the legislation that expands provisions for those who are wrongly convicted so they can receive compensation from the state for their time spent in prison. And yeah, as you mentioned, the prosecutors, they there's some tweaks to the language they wanted to make, but they are supportive of the concept as a whole and have previously testified in favor of the legislation.
All right, so I do make a motion that technically, I think I forgot this step, that we make a motion that Senate Bill number 36 be brought before the committee. We had the second by Senator Coleman. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And the ayes have it. I move that Senate Bill number 36 be voted do pass. Is there a second? We had one from Senator Coleman. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, real quick, are there any changes, or you're just bringing it as is?
We're going to bring it as is for now. Okay. To move it through the process, I've had commitments from Senator Roberts that we are working with the prosecutors and other interested parties on addressing a couple tweaks in this. Any further discussion? All right. I move that we do pass Senate Bill number 36. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Schroer.
Aye.
Gregory 15. Aye. Brown 26. Aye. Coleman. Pass. May. Aye. Roberts. Aye. Schnelting.
You got to go back to
Coleman. Coleman.
I'm going to be a no. Thanks.
I vote a 5-1. We do pass Senate Bill number 36. I make a motion that we bring up Senate Bill number 60 before the committee. Is there a second? Second by Senator Coleman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Senate Bill number 60 is brought before the committee. Discussion on Senate Bill 60. Senator Coleman.
Yes. Do you want to go first, Carly?
And I will tell you there is a substitute that is on its way. I don't know when it's going to get here, so let's feel free to amend if necessary, or we can go back. But
so that was my motion. I was going to make a motion to amend. If somebody, I don't have the copy of my bill in front of me, but if when you're looking at, let me find this reference. Do you have the?
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a motion to strike on page 13, line 34 and line 35, which is 2(2)B, that states, "No court shall suspend the imposition or execution of sentence of a person who pleads guilty to or is found guilty of an offense under this subdivision." I've spoken with the bill sponsor. She was planning on including this in her substitute. My concern is there's a whole section of jurisprudence and a body of law about expungement and when a judge can suspend, I'm sorry, not expungement, we're on a new bill, suspend imposition or execution of a sentence, and I don't think that we should be addressing on a case-by-case basis new laws taking away that authority. So I'm making a motion to strike that, and I'd love a second.
Second.
It's in the sub? Oh. I'd like to make a motion to withdraw my amendment.
All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, motion is withdrawn.
Okay, so we now have
Reading a substitute
the substitute.
that ends in 03C. All right, so the motion is withdrawn. The amendment is withdrawn, rather, and we have a new substitute. Okay. Give anybody time to discuss this substitute and make sure all of the corrections therein are what you all had discussed with the Senate sponsor. Any discussion?
So did we make sure that a person commits the offense with danger to others on the first degree if he or she. So on
Senator May.
On 568, does all of these have to be, or is it or? Before, because we were talking about knowingly acts in a manner that creates substantial risk to the life, body, or health of a child less than 17 years of age. We were saying that, does the number 4 only apply to number 4, or does it also apply to 1 as well? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Are you on page 1 or page 2?
I'm on page 1.
Okay. So page 4, that is in terms of the drugs,
No, I'm talking
fentanyl.
about number 4 on page 1 under 568.045.
Mr. Chairman, I
So
can
in the
answer
presence
that.
of a child less than 17 years of age in the residence, unlawfully manufactures or attempts to manufacture, compounds, possesses, produces, prepares, sells, transports, tests, or analyzes. So it's one of those prongs, and you have to include either the fentanyl, carfentanil, amphetamine, methamphetamine, or its analogs.
Okay, so number 4 stands independently.
Mr. Chairman, her and I talked it over. If you want me to help explain what her question is.
Yep, so Senator Gregory.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
So-
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
I think they just never moved down the 4. So the or is supposed to be actually on number 3.
That's right. So, Senator, as you can see, that has not changed. Number 1, number 2, and number 3 are not affected by this. Only as it applies to fentanyl and carfentanil is it affected and heightened. That was your question. Are we making it a higher degree felony? These other ones, 1, 2, and 3, and the answer is no, we are not. They are not affected.
Okay, so should we put or behind the rest of them? See, like number 1, or we need a number,
We would repeal this one. Sorry. Repeal this one and just add the or.
yeah,
And
add
then
the
it
or
means
after 3.
Yeah. They just never did it.
Yeah, can I make a motion to do that?
Yeah. So make a motion that we bring the substitute ending in 03C before the body. Do I have a second? Second. The ayes, or any noes? I don't even know what the hell I'm doing right now.
So is before the committee.
Yeah, so the substitute is before the committee. Now, any discussion on the substitute? Senator May?
I make a motion to amend the substitute, removing the or from behind number 1 and putting the or behind number 3. The 579 on number 3.
All right, Coleman has seconded the motion. All in favor of adopting Amendment 1 to the substitute, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We have adopted Senate Amendment 1 to Senate substitute, ending in 03C. Any further discussion on the substitute?
May I inquire of Senator Gregory?
You may.
Senator, do you want to walk through the changes on 2, since I think you were the one who brought the,
Yes, the only other...
on page 2?
Yes, so the changes on page 2, the felony, so the way this section works, everything that falls under this section is a D felony unless, and then it goes down on page 2, the different exceptions that heighten it. So as you can see, the only changes to the heightened felonies involves, where we see the changes, number 2, subsection 2, involves fentanyl or carfentanil or any analog thereof, in which case it becomes a B felony. The original bill didn't have a class designated, so we didn't know what it was.
Let me ask if I understand this correctly. So what you're saying is if the underlying case is a Class B felony, that's what will get the enhancement, and the enhancement won't be present unless that underlying exposure is a Class B felony, to bump it from a D to a B.
This whole section's deemed to be a D felony unless it fits one of the exceptions. This is one of the exceptions, which means it becomes a B.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Senator Coleman.
Sorry, David, there was one other change that it looks like was originally on the filed bill. It had been not less than 5, but not more than 10. We're dropping that and changing it just to at least 5 years. So it looks like we are dropping the ceiling.
Yeah, I was not part of that change. I'm not sure why.
Does anybody know where that ceiling, or where
Yeah,
that change
because
came from?
We weren't going to, yeah, because basically it was saying that
Because we didn't have a class because it was an unclassified felony. And
So we don't
they-
need the ceiling because we're adding the classification?
Yeah, and a Class
I
B
see.
felony
It
is-
has that in.
Yeah, I believe it's I'd have to look, I think it's like a 7 to 15 is what I'm...
Okay, so I'm repeating that in case anybody's listening. What was done is by adding the classification, Class B felonies have a range that are already imposed that are greater than the previously designated section that was put there. So it's 5 to 15 instead of 5 to 10, so we're striking the ceiling and adding just the floor, but we get the ceiling by adding the classification. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I now make a motion that we adopt the substitute as amended. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Voice it. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say no. And the ayes have it. I now move that we. Okay. I now move that we do pass Senate Bill 60 as amended. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Schroer. Gregory 15. Brown 26. Coleman. May.
Aye.
Roberts. Schnelting.
Senator Schnelting left his aye with me, and since it's not changing the outcome, 7-0, do pass Senate Bill 60. We're now going to exit executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we're going to have to move to 1-minute testimony for the remainder. So for those in favor, please come forward. Make sure you have your witness form, and we're going to speed through the rest of this hearing.
It's going to be over.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. My name is Kurt Wickmer with the Missouri Catholic Conference. Coming at this from a faith-based perspective, the Christian ethic teaches that we can always receive a second chance if we're just willing to make an attempt and give it an honest try. And I think this bill is a very good incentive for people to do that, and also to help them get a leg back up and reintegrate into society. So we'd like to go on the record in support, and thank you very much, Senator, for bringing this up.
Thank you for your testimony. Could you state your name again for the record?
Kurt Wickmer, Missouri Catholic Conference.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Thank you for your testimony. Moving forward to the next witness and support.
Hello, everyone. My name is Latrell Stanton. I am from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm an organizer for Metropolitan Congregations United. I work with directly impacted people in faith communities to organize on behalf of impacted people. I have been testifying for Clean Slate for the past 2 years. This will be my third time. And the reason being is that when I started organizing with ex-incarcerated people, the number one thing they asked about was criminal record expungement. Since then, I've developed and researched about the process itself. I had an event called Demystifying the Expungement Process, where it showed all the different levels and plaintiffs in the expungement process. I engage with directly impacted people, and I just want to outline the mental toll that it takes on people and the mental blocks and barriers that impacted people have when thinking about their criminal record and when it comes to jobs, employment, and housing, and how it feels because you're in a constant state of insecurity when it comes to even if you have a job, what happens if you want to move your job? Even if you have a home, what happens when you want to get another home? Reentry only lasts so long. Also, I have started conducting my own expungement clinics, and I just would like to say that the process is so daunting to people.
Okay.
A lot of times the lawyers don't necessarily want to participate in that because they don't want to be labeled as someone's lawyer.
I apologize, your time has run out, but we do have a question.
I got one question.
Senator May?
Yes. So, thank you for being here. I have an expungement clinic. That Metropolitan, is that on Union?
No, we're in Central West End off of Westminster at Second Presbyterian Church.
Okay, yes, okay. We do an expungement clinic every year, and we have attorneys to come. So me and you, we need to connect. I did one last year. We had over 200 people to come, and lawyers helped them fill out the paperwork and give them instructions on how to do it. So that's the key.
Right,
to
you
them getting
usually
there.
get a kit, but some directly impacted people are not sure enough to be able to take that pro se kit and go to the expungement court. So I deal with a lot of those people too. But I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I will though.
Thank you. Next witness in support, please come forward. You have 1 minute. Make sure you have your witness form.
Good morning. My name's Rochelle Kaskowitz, and I'm here on behalf of Women's Voices Raised for Social Justice, a nonpartisan St. Louis area organization with 300 members and 4,000 subscribers. I wanted to say that for Women's Voices Raised for Social Justice, we believe Senate Bill 1919 presents a win-win opportunity for Missouri, and I think we've seen that today. First, the individuals who have served their sentence and remained crime-free benefit by having what is already an expungible sentence, expungable crime actually removed from their record, and they're able to get employment and remove the stigma of criminal conviction. Next, the families benefit because they have the individual has the ability to get stable housing for the family, provide food and clothing, and be present for their children as they're growing up. Third, the employers benefit by having a larger pool of applicants, and the entire community benefits by the individual being a productive member of society, supporting children, and being far less likely to reoffend.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, I'm going to move to the next witness in support. Make sure you leave your witness form, and you have 1 minute.
Good morning. My name is Renia Farmer, former inmate, ex-offender, 352-449. I thank God for doing a deliverance. I need a clean slate. I've been home since December the 15th, 2015. Was sent back for 2 days, miscommunication. Was sent back for 2 days, came right out of RNO. But since being home, it's hard for me. It's still hard for me to get housing. It's still hard for me to get work. And I'm living in a sober living boarding home. I feel safe there because I need somewhere to go. I need my record to be okay. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I love God and I serve His people, and I need help. That's it.
With time to spare, thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions?
Yeah.
Seeing none. Next witness and support, please come forward. Make sure you have your witness form, and you have 1 minute. Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Senator May.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Can you stop by 225 so I can get? Can you stop by 225 so I can get your information and we can partner? Thank you.
Next witness in support. You'll have 1 minute. Proceed when ready.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Mary Quant. I'm the Director of Public Health Policy with Missouri Appleseed. We are a nonprofit organization that believes all Missouri families deserve the opportunity to thrive. Using research, advocacy, and education, we promote policies and systems change that intersect with public health, criminal justice, and child welfare. And we have some familiar faces who have helped us pass other bills and improve the lives of Missouri families. And we would like to just be on record in extreme support of this bill for all the reasons previously stated.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Next witness in support, please come forward.
Good morning. Sharon Galway-Jones here today on behalf of the Missouri State Conference of the NAACP and DREAM.org. Both of these organizations are in favor of the bill. I could go on at length, and I probably have with some of you, about the moral and historical reasons to do this sort of thing, but I want to take it back to the very practical reason that we have a labor shortage. And having these records that are decades old sometimes are preventing people from getting jobs, from being able to support their families and themselves. This is a very common sense and good economic sense thing to do, in addition to all the reasons that we should be doing it because it's the right thing. So with that, I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Next witness in support, please come forward. Proceed when ready. You have 1 minute.
Good morning,
And
Mr. Chair.
any written testimony you can leave at the witness stand, we'll distribute as well.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Cade Tremaine. I'm here today on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry as we support Senate Bill 19. Despite helpful modifications over the past several years, we've heard today that Missouri's expungement law can still be improved. Senate Bill 19 will help streamline the expungement process, making it easier for justice-involved individuals to re-enter the workforce and fully integrate back into society. The Missouri Chamber supports Senate Bill 19 for two main reasons. It supports Missouri's workforce through opening new employment opportunities, and it will contribute to lower recidivism rates, supporting a stronger and safer Missouri. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Next witness in support. Seeing none. Next witness in opposition, please come forward. And again, anyone who has written testimony that you want distributed, please leave at the witness stand.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Eric Jennings, Supreme Court Government Relations Counsel on behalf of the Judicial Conference of Missouri. And this is a discussion that we had last year. We had the similar discussion this year internally on whether this should be characterized as opposition or information only. It doesn't fall in either category entirely. The Judicial Conference does not have any position on the policy components of expungement. Whether it happens, whether it's petition-based, whether it's state-initiated, how long the time periods are, what the eligibility criteria are either. Our sole concern is that as currently drafted, we don't believe that our resources are adequate or that the time is adequate to implement what is spelled out in the legislation. We're glad to work with the sponsor, with the committee, as we have tried to over the last year to reformat that, reorganize that so that those issues are not a concern.
Thank you for your testimony. Senator Coleman.
Go
ahead. No,
okay. Okay. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to say I don't believe that the Supreme Court, as in the past, stood in the way when we've had disagreements about allocations of funding to do the job which the Constitution and we require you to do. And so it sounds like you are not commenting at all ideologically. You're just talking about processes and systems.
Pure mechanics would be the concerns that we have.
And I know that in the past you all have not let mechanical concerns get away in the distribution of justice, and I'm looking forward to you finding a solution with Senator Williams, Senator Trent, and Senator Washington.
We're looking forward to the conversations as well.
Senator May. She said it.
Same answer.
All right, any further questions? Seeing none. Next witness in opposition. Seeing none, next witness in informational purposes. Seeing none. Informational, please come forward. You have 1 minute.
My name is Brian Feemster. I'm the circuit clerk in Greene County, Missouri. And I'd like to just say that Greene County's fully electronic records go back to 2008. Our experience expunging marijuana charges gives some insight into what to expect from this legislation. We have worked more than 13,000 hours to automatically expunge more than 8,000 cases. We've been working on this project for 2 years and are not yet finished. This process has been replicated in every county in the state. We estimate this legislation would result in 5 to 10 times more expunged cases and required resources than a marijuana project. This bill compares to a marijuana expungement's following ways. Each marijuana case can be processed without checking any other case in isolation. This legislation requires a search of lifetime charges to be complete before we can determine if the charges should be expunged automatically, and a petition must then, if that's true, if they've exceeded lifetime charges, a petition has to be done to expunge for someone to select the charges they want to be expunged.
Sir, your time is expired. You can leave the remainder of that speech on the desk in the witness stand if you'd like. Right. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. In closing, I just want to stress that some statistics. Job seekers cost the U.S. economy $78 billion annually. And we've seen that second chance employees are generally more loyal, have lower turnover rates than other employees, significantly reducing recruitment and training costs. Lastly, what this legislation is doing is creating an automated system which will have an algorithm that would that's coded to eligibility criteria, which runs a monthly search that would on the state's official criminal history database, and it routes the list of eligible records to the courts for processing. So this is just simply changing the code and the algorithm to be able to run every month. This doesn't require someone sitting on a computer going through lists of records manually. we can have an algorithm that codes and identify those that are eligible, put them right in front of the courts, and be able to get those records automatically expunged. So in 2025, to be talking about technology when we live in a society that has been able to figure out how to communicate post-pandemic, I don't think that should be a barrier to help people get on the pathway to a quality life.
Thank you, Senator Williams. This concludes the hearing for Senate Bill 19. Having no further business before the committee, I move that we adjourn. Second, we are adjourned. Thank you.